Guys, we are going to start the giver on the bottom of page 63. We're kind of just recapping that last paragraph. She was looking at one of the elders. The committee of elders was sitting together in a group. The chief elder's eyes were now on one who sat in the midst, but seemed oddly separate from them. It was a man Jonas had never noticed before, a bearded man with pale eyes. He was watching Jonas intently. "We failed in our last selection," the chief elder said solemnly. "It was 10 years ago when Jonas was just a toddler. I will not dwell on the experience because it causes us all terrible discomfort." Jonas didn't know what she was referring to, but he could sense the discomfort of the audience. They shifted uneasy in their seats. "We have not been hasty this time," she continued. "We could not afford another failure. Sometimes," she went on, speaking now in a lighter tone, relaxing the tension in the auditorium, we are not entirely certain about the assignments, even after the most painstaking observations. Sometimes we worry that one assigned might not develop through training every attribute necessary. 11s are still children, after all. What we observe as playfulness and patience, the requirements to become nurturer, could, with maturity, be revealed as simple foolishness and indolence. So we continue to observe during training and to modify behavior when necessary. But the receiver in training cannot be observed, cannot be modified. This is stated quite clearly in the rules. He is to be alone, apart, while he is prepared by the current receiver for the job which is the most honored in the community. Alone, apart, Jonas listened, with increasing unease. Therefore, the selection must be sound. It must be unanimous choice of the committee. They have no doubts, however fleeting, if during the process an elder reports a dream of uncertainty, that dream has the power to set a candidate aside instantly. Jonas was identified as a possible receiver many years ago. We have observed him meticulously. There were no dreams of uncertainty. He has shown all of the qualities that a receiver must have. With her hand still firmly on his shoulder, the chief elder listed the qualities. "Intelligence," she said. "We are all aware that Jonas has been the top student throughout his school days." "Integrity," she said next. "Jonas has, like all of us, committed minor transgressions." She smiled at him. "We expect that. We hoped also that he would present himself promptly for chastisement, and he has also done so." "Courage," she went on. "Only one of us here today has ever undergone the rigorous training required of a receiver. He, of course, is the most important member of the committee, the current receiver. It is he who reminded us again and again of the courage required." "Jonas," she said, turning to him, but speaking in a voice that the entire community could hear, "the training required of you involves pain, physical pain." He felt fear flutter within him. "You have never experienced that. Yes, you have scraped your knees in falls from your bicycle. Yes, you crushed your finger in a door last year." Jonas nodded again, agreeing as he recalled the incident and the accompanying misery. "But you will be faced now," she explained gently, "with a pain of magnitude that none of us here can comprehend because it is beyond our experience. The receiver himself was not able to describe it, only to remind us that you would be faced with it, that you would need immense courage. We cannot prepare you for that. But we feel certain that you are brave," she said to him. He did not feel brave at all, not now. "The fourth essential attribute," the chief elder said, "is wisdom. Jonas has not yet acquired that. The acquisition of wisdom will come through his training. We are convinced that Jonas has the ability to acquire wisdom. That is what we look for. Finally, the receiver must have one more quality, and it is one which I can only name but not describe. I do not understand it. You, members of the community, will also not understand it. Perhaps Jonas will, because the current receiver has told us that Jonas already has the quality. He calls it the capacity to see beyond. The chief elder looked at Jonas with a question in her eyes. The audience watched him too. They were silent. For a moment, he froze, consumed with despair. He didn't have it, whatever she said he had. He didn't know what it was. Now was the moment when he would have to confess, to say, no, I can't, and throw himself on their mercy and ask forgiveness, to explain that he had been wrongly chosen, that he was not the right one at all. But when he looked out across the crowd, the sea of faces, the thing happened again. The thing that had happened with the apple. They changed. He blinked and it was gone. His shoulders straightened slightly. Briefly, he felt a tiny sliver of sureness for the first time. She was still watching him. They all were. I think it's true, he told the elder and the community. I don't understand it yet. I don't know what it is, but sometimes I see something, and maybe it's beyond. She took her arm from his shoulders. Jonas, she said, speaking not to him alone, but to the entire community of which he was a part of. You will be trained to be our next receiver of memory. We thank you for your childhood. Then she turned and left the stage. She left him there alone, standing and facing the crowd, which began spontaneously the collective murmur of his name. Jonas. It was a whisper at first, hushed, barely audible. Jonas. Jonas. The louder, faster, then louder, faster. Jonas, Jonas, Jonas. With the chant, Jonas knew the community was accepting him and his new role, giving him life the way they had given to the new child. Caleb, his heart swelled with gratitude and pride. But at the same time, he was filled with fear. He did not know what this selection meant. He did not know what he was to become or what would become of him. Now, for the first time in his 12 years of life, Jonas felt separate, different. He remembered what the chief elder had said, that his training would be alone and apart. But his training had not yet begun, and already upon leaving the auditorium, he felt the apartness. Holding the folder she had given him, he made his way through the throng, looking for his family unit and for Asher. People moved aside for him. They watched him. He thought he could hear whispers. Ash, he called, spotting his friend near the row of bicycles. Ride back with me? Sure, Asher smiled, his usual smile, friendly and familiar, but Jonas felt a moment of hesitation from his friend, an uncertainty. Congratulations, Asher said. You too, Jonas replied. It was really funny when she told about the smacks. You got more applause than almost anybody. The other new 12s clustered nearby, placing their folders carefully into the carrying containers on the backs of the bikes, and each dwelling tonight they would be studying the instructions from the beginning of their training. Each night for the years of the children had memorized the required lessons for school, often yawning with boredom. Tonight, they would all begin eagerly to memorize the rules for their adult assignments. Congratulations, Asher, someone called. Then that hesitation again. You too, Jonas. Asher and Jonas responded with congratulations to their group mates. Jonas saw his parents watching from the place where their own bicycles were waiting. Lily had already been strapped into her seat. He waved. They waved back, smiling, but he noticed that Lily was watching him solemnly, her thumb in her mouth. He rode directly to his dwelling, engaging only small jokes and unimportant remarks with Asher. See you in the morning, recreation director, he called, dismounting by his door as Asher continued on. Right, see you, Asher called back. Once again, there was just a moment when things weren't quite the same, weren't quite as they had always been through the long friendship. Perhaps he had imagined it. Things couldn't change with Asher. The evening meal was quieter than usual. Lily chattered about her plans for volunteer work. She would begin, she said, at the Nurture Center, since she was already an expert at feeding Gabriel. I know, she added quickly when her father gave her a warning glance. I won't mention his name. I know I'm not supposed to know his name. I can't wait for tomorrow to come, she said happily. Jonas sighed, uneasy. I can, he muttered. You've been greatly honored, his mother said. Your father and I are very proud. It's the most important job in the community, father said. But just the other night, you said that the job of making assignments was the most important. Mother nodded. This is different. It's not a job, really. I never thought, never expected, she paused. There's only one receiver. But the chief elder said that they had made a selection before and that it had failed. What was she talking about? Both of his parents hesitated. Finally, his father described the previous selection. It was very much as it is today, Jonas, the same suspense, as 111 had been passed over when the assignments were given. The announcement when they singled out the one. Jonas interrupted. What was his name? His mother replied, her, not his. It was a female, but we are never to speak of the name or use it again for a new child. Jonas was shocked. A name designated not to be spoken indicated the highest degree of disgrace. What happened to her? He asked nervously, but his parents looked blank. We don't know, his father said uncomfortably. We never saw her again. A silence fell over the room. They looked at each other. Finally, his mother, rising from the table, said, You've been greatly honored, Jonas. Greatly honored. Alone in his sleeping room, prepared for bed, Jonas opened his folder at last. Some of the other 12s had noticed, had been given folders thick with printed pages. He imagined Benjamin, the scientific male in his group, beginning to read the pages of rules and instructions with relish. He pictured Fiona smiling her gentle smile as she bent over the list of duties and methods that she would be required to learn the days to come. But his own folder, startlingly close to empty. Inside, there was only a single printed sheet. He read it twice. Jonas, receiver of memory. Go immediately at the end of school hours each day to the annex entrance behind the house of the old and present yourself to the attendant. 2. Go immediately to your dwelling at the conclusion of training hours each day. 3. From this moment, you are exempt from rules governing rudeness. You may ask any questions of any citizen, and you will receive answers. 4. Do not discuss your training with any other member of the community, including parents and elders. 5. From this moment, you are prohibited from dream telling. 6. Except for illness or injury unrelated to your training, do not apply for any medication. 7. You are not permitted to apply for release. 8. You may lie. And with that, I am going to stop right there. I want you guys to think about everything that just transpired and what happened and all the new stuff that Jonas is going through. That's a lot. And given the community and then what he's now being told that is going to be different for him, just think about that. Think about how you guys would respond or react to that. All right. See you tomorrow.